Now let's just start the chapter with the very first concept, which is nothing but called as the congruence of the triangles. So let us suppose if I'm just taking an example of these two photographs. These two photographs are of a same person. So you can observe over here that these two photographs are of a same person. They are of the same shape, same size, means the photographs are identical. Moreover, if I'm just talking about these two bangles, you can see all by yourself that again these two bangles are identical to each other. Or if I'll place one bangle onto the other bangle, so they will be congruent to each other. What is the meaning of congruent? So the meaning of the congruent figures is congruent means equal in all the respects, or the figures whose shapes and sizes are actually same. So we can definitely say that these two photographs or these two bangles are actually congruent figures. Why so? Because they are exactly having the same shape and the same size, and they are equal in all the respects. That's why they are nothing but called as the congruent figures. Now furthermore, if let us suppose if I'm just moving on further and taking an example of the squares. Let us suppose if I have these four squares. So can you just tell me that which square are congruent to which one? So from the first square, let us suppose if I'm just starting with from the very first square, you can see that this square and the second square is definitely not congruent to each other. Why so? Because they are not of the same shape, they are not of the same size, and furthermore they are definitely square, but they do not have the same size. Now furthermore, you can see that the second and the third square, they are definitely again not congruent to each other, because if you will place one square onto the other, they will not be equal in respect. Now furthermore, if you can see the third and the fourth one, again they are not congruent to each other. But here the very first square and the last square, they are coming congruent to each other, because if you will place this particular square onto the first square, then they will be of equal shape, they will be of equal size, and they will be equal in all the respects. That's why we can say that the very first square and the last square, they are actually congruent to each other, because they are equal in all the respects, means they have the equal shape, they have the equal size. So since from this particular activity, we can say that the very first square and the last square, they are actually congruent to each other. Now let us suppose if I'm just moving on further with the triangle, and I'm just talking about the congruency in the triangle, because we are doing the topic congruence of triangles. So let's just discuss about the triangle. So let us suppose if I have these two triangles, that is triangle number 1 and triangle number 2. So what can we say about these two triangles, that how or when we will call them as congruent? So two triangles are congruent if the sides and the angles of one triangle are equal to the corresponding sides and the angles of the other triangle. So always remember, whenever we are just talking about the congruence of the two triangles, then they are said to be congruent to each other if the sides of one particular triangle should be equal to the sides of the other triangle, and the angles of one triangle, they are equal to the corresponding angles of the other triangle. So let us suppose if I'll just take an activity, and we will see that how we can say about this particular thing, that how we can say that the two triangles are congruent to each other or not. Let us suppose if I'm just taking an example of these three triangles. So you can observe that if I'm just talking about the very first triangle over here, so we have the very first triangle. In the first triangle, we have the side as AB, which is nothing but 4.5. So let's just see the side in this triangle, which is PQR. So if we have a side 4.5 centimeter or not. So yes, we have a side 4.5 centimeter. Now furthermore, if I'm just moving on further over here, there is no such side which is 4.5 centimeter. It means that this triangle is totally neglected. Why so? Because in both of these triangles, we have a common side as 4.5. We have a 4.5, but over here we do not have a 4.5. So let us suppose if I'm just neglecting this triangle first, Now you can see that here AB side is actually coming equal to this PR side. Now furthermore, if I'll see this AC or CA side, let's suppose if I'm just talking about this CA, this is 4 centimeter. Let's just see any side over here which is 4 centimeter. So yes, there is a side which is nothing but 4 centimeter over here. There is a side which is 4 centimeter over here. So this side is actually coming equal to be this side. Now furthermore, you can see BC is actually coming equal to nothing but RQ. You can see that this is 5 centimeter, this is 5 centimeter. So this side is actually coming equal to be this side. So what does it mean? It means that the sides and the angles of the first triangle should be equal to the sides and the angles of the other triangle. It means that we can say that these two triangles are actually congruent to each other if their angles are equal to each other. We do not here know about the angles, but by taking an assumption that their angles are also equal to each other, we can say that if their sides are equal, if their angles are equal, then they are nothing but called as congruent triangles. So if they are congruent, if their angles are also equal, then we can say that the two triangles are congruent to each other. Now here there is a very special note which is related with how we can write that these two triangles are congruent to each other. So first of all, let us suppose if I'm just talking about the triangle ABC. So we can say that in the triangle ABC and the triangle we have PQR, we have a triangle PQR. We can also take PRQ. We can also take PRQ triangle. So first of all, we can see over here that the side AB actually corresponds to the side PR, the side PR, and furthermore we can see that the side CA actually corresponds to QP. This corresponds to QP. Now furthermore, we can say that the BC side actually corresponds to RQ. And furthermore, if by assumption we are saying that angle A corresponds to angle B, angle B corresponds to angle R, and angle C corresponds to angle Q. So we can say from this particular thing that the triangle ABC will be congruent to the triangle PRQ, So this is a very special note that how we can write the two triangles to be congruent to each other. So since you can see that here the angle A corresponds to the angle P, so angle B corresponds to the angle R, angle C corresponds to the angle Q. So that's why I have taken ABC in this order and PRQ in this order. Note that you cannot write triangle ABC is congruent to the triangle PQR. This is a wrong representation. Why so? Because we know that the angles that we have, that is angle A, angle B, angle C, they are actually corresponding to the angle PRQ rather than PQR, because in this representation it represents that the angle A corresponds to the angle P, angle B corresponds to the angle Q, but here angle B does not correspond to the angle Q, it corresponds to the angle R. So it is really an important representation. Always remember, whatever angle is corresponding to that angle, you have to write that angle in such a manner. So here angle C corresponds to the angle R. Obviously angle C is not corresponding to the angle R, it is corresponding to the angle Q. Furthermore, you can see from these sides AB corresponds to PR, so AB sides corresponds to PR, CA sides corresponds to QP, CA means we are talking about this CA side corresponds to this QP. So I have written this particular representation in satisfying all these conditions. Now furthermore, BC corresponds to RQ. You can check that BC over here is corresponding to RQ, but over here this representation does not satisfy all these 6 criteria, all these 6 things. So always remember the representation of the congruence of the two triangles is really an important part over here, that you always have to write the congruency in between the two triangles in such a manner such that these sides should correspond to each other, these angles should correspond to each other. So their representation is quite an important thing over here. So this is the right representation. Always remember to write in such a manner in which the corresponding angles should be written according to the corresponding angles, or the corresponding sides should be written with respect to the corresponding sides. Now furthermore, there exists also an important note which says that in corresponding triangles the corresponding parts are equal. We definitely know about this thing, and in short we write this thing as CPCT. So rather than just saying that the congruent triangles corresponding parts are equal, we always write in short CPCT, which represents for corresponding parts of the congruent triangles. Means whenever the two triangles are congruent, then definitely their corresponding sides are also equal, their corresponding angles are also equal. So always remember, whenever we are just writing CPCT, it means that the corresponding parts of the congruent triangles are actually equal to each other. So this is all about the basic congruence of the triangle, in which we have discussed about how we can represent the two congruent triangles in such a manner, and we have seen that how we can say that the two triangles are congruent to each other, that what are the criteria which is related with it.